liberty or give me death. I'll fight till the end, till my last breath. Give me liberty or give
Hello everybody, I am Dax Islander, and this is going to be another Dax Interviews. I am here with Nicholas Reale. He is the YouTube channel R11110000. He is a strong supporter of Ron Paul and hoping to be a good friend of mine. He shares a lot of political ideologies with me, and let's let him tell him for himself. Nick, how you doing today?
Good, Dax. How are you? Good to be here.
I'm alright. Can't really complain too much. Glad to have you. So, we were talking a little bit prior to the podcast starting, or the interview starting, and we were discussing things like, the economy, Federal Reserve, stuff that my crazy conspiracy butt talks about nonstop. And I was hoping to get Nicholas's opinion on, small arms treaty, President of the United States questioning relevance of Congress, economic collapse, and the future of America. So, I think I'll let you tell a little bit about yourself, Nick.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me again. It's good to be here. Like you were saying, I create the YouTube channel R11110000. I post constantly on that channel, and I'm mainly a liberty-minded civilian like yourself, like many others, who just decided he's not going to allow this to happen and at least want to step up and fight it. And that's what I did. I ran for state rep here in New Mexico this past year. I did lose. It was my first time around, though, and I honestly learned a lot and plan to see what I can do for that in the future. But that is the gist of me, if you will.
I'll say so, sure, man. We got a lot of people, in the Liberty corner who are taking their shots at office, and I think that eventually we will take over our little parts of government.
I think you're right on that. In fact, I'm hoping many more step up in the years to come. I think this was a big year to awaken a lot of people to the reality of what's happening. Just with my channel alone, I know a ton of people comment all the time about how we are awake and we're not going to allow the mainstream media to manipulate our minds through their false agendas anymore. And I think that in the future we're going to see a lot more step up, just because they're going to realize the necessity that we need people to step up. I just hope it makes it that far. I know some of the topics that you want to talk about will go into that. For example, the economic crisis that we face. I'm personally another that is very concerned about what's going to be happening in the future with our economy. The Federal Reserve has been printing so much money, quantitatively easing, propping up our currency literally for years now, that we are going to see massive inflation in the future. And that's one thing that I'm worried about. Basically what happened is the Federal Reserve printed a bunch of money, bailed out big corporations, big banks, and unfortunately put the burden on the American people. When they bailed them out, they gave me and you a hidden inflation tax that we are going to pay throughout the years, that we have to pay. It's not like that money just gets printed out of thin air and, all is good, because we could just continue to do that for the rest of our lives. No, unfortunately, the more money that's in the system, the more things are going to cost, and the more things are going to, the more things that are going to happen to get your food to the grocery store, to get your food to even your house, in a sense, for you to feed your family. So we're going to see unfortunate major inflation soon, which is one thing I'm very concerned about.
On that topic, we will get into that in our economic collapse part of it. But on that, do you think it's the petrodollar is the primary resource of the American dollar that keeps it afloat right now?
That's a good question. I honestly am going to have to claim the fifth on that, because I'm going to need to do more research of oil, etc., not petroleum. I honestly am. That's one thing I'm going to probably need to do more research. But I do know that oil is a big part of this world system. And with Iraq, recently, just, with the war in Iraq, etc., a lot of oil is about to be mass-produced through companies like Exxon, who are Rockefeller-owned, etc. BP is going to be down there as well, and I don't think that it's a big. It's a big part of the system, but in a sense, I don't know if it's what you would call the most vital piece of the economy. But it is a very big part, and I think it does have a big role to play with the fluctuation of the value of the dollar, and not only the dollar, but other currencies as well.
All right. So, and I apologize for my dog. He is just, I don't know what to do with him. So, so let's go ahead and get into our first topic, the Small Arms UN Treaty. It was recently stopped by 51 senators who formed more or less a coalition against it. What is your take on the Small Arms Treaty?
Well, we were talking about this a little bit ago, and one of the big things that I stated was that it's completely against the U.S. Constitution. It goes completely against what the Second Amendment was designed to do, was designed for, and to protect our rights as gun owners. And honestly, I think you said it best. Only 51 senators, attempted to stop it. It should have been every single senator. I think that a lot of our representatives of this country, not only representatives just U.S. Congress, but our senators as well, they don't really take the U.S. Constitution as they should and as we have in the past. They look at it as, and I'm just going to quote Barack Obama, an imperfect document that literally needs to be solved. And really, I disagree. I think that the Constitution is what's great about our country. It's what gives us the free will and rights to do whatever we want, in a sense, as long as it's within the law, and protect our family, and allow us to have religious beliefs that are different to others, and give us the ability to speak out, as well as many other amendments that were created to protect our rights as human beings that are God-given, So I would definitely say that the UN Arms Treaty, I find it very coincidental that it just happened to be on the same week as a major shooting, as most of you have heard of the Colorado shooting, at the movie theater for the Batman premiere. It's a very unfortunate situation, but I do find it very coincidental that that shooting just happened to be on the same week of that UN vote. It was almost to play to your emotions, in a sense, to want to give up your constitutional rights, which they've been playing many tricks in the past years, in the past century, in a sense, to take away our rights little by little. And this is one right that has not been taken away yet, that I honestly feel is under attack. And I believe the UN Arms Treaty is going to attack it majorly. And luckily, I believe it failed, so we'll see what happens in the future. But just like SOPA, they didn't give up. They created CISPA, just a few sentence changes, and just to get their way still. I'm sure that they're going to attempt this just in a different way. So we'll see what happens in the future. I'm definitely completely against it, as you probably have guessed, but...
Oh, I'm right there with you. Yeah, today, this year has not been a good year for my state, has it? First we got the fire, then we got the shooting. Dang.
Are you in Colorado? Yeah, that's not a good thing.
No, I was in Colorado Springs where the fire was.
Oh, wow, man.
Silent Hill. That's the only way I could describe it. Silent Hill.
Yeah, I know what that feels like. I was in the hurricane. I used to live in Houston, and right after Katrina, Hurricane Rita came through, and literally everybody was so freaked out because Katrina played to their emotions and literally it was just me and a few friends that stayed in the town. And I mean, my town is not a small town; it was a big town. To literally walk outside and realize that nobody is around you was very fascinating.
I understand that, good sir. Didn't they take all the guns in Katrina and deny? Didn't FEMA deny Walmart's charity for them?
Man, honestly, I'd have to look into that before I told you yes or no for sure. But I do know that there's some very big foul play. I do know that police officers were actually just shooting people on the streets because literally it went to martial law that they didn't care, in a sense. So I do know a few police officers did shoot a few civilians, and I know Blackwater was big. It was almost like a big military experiment, in a sense, down that way. It was like a real-life situation experiment for a lot of military and missionaries, etc. But before I claimed on Walmart, I would have to double-check that.
All right. So the next topic we're going to be covering is the President of the United States questioning the relevance of Congress, which is basically questioning the relevance of we the people and our opinions due through our elected officials. So, do you feel that President Obama is undermining the legislature?
I do. I think that he, just from his own words, and I said this a minute ago, he literally claims that the Constitution is an imperfect document. Granted, back in 1776, there weren't women's rights, blacks' rights, etc. So in a sense, you agree on a little standpoint of that, but mainly the Constitution is there to protect women and all races. That's what's great about the Constitution. And he has claimed that it is an imperfect document, and literally just looking at the past bills, for example, the addition of the NDAA, the CISPA, SOPA, ACTA, PIPA, FISA. I mean, the list goes on. There's a lot more that you can talk about. That's just in the past year, not even a year. It looks to be that there's going to be major changes soon, and it looks to be that he wants to implement them. But, the bad thing is Romney's no different. I can't come to Romney's defense because Romney literally has come out saying that he would have voted for the addition of the NDAA and is out actually for SOPA, PIPA, etc. So I honestly don't know what to tell you there, but I will say that Obama is really coming out and undermining the Constitution and Congress, etc. And what makes this country so great,
Right.
That's just one major thing. Yeah, I think that it looks to be that he has a pretty good chance to win. I hope not, and I still hope Ron Paul takes the Republican nomination here soon, hopefully. That looks to be a long shot, to be honest, but hopefully something happens to where that works out. Otherwise, I think I'm going to be switching to Gary Johnson, personally. That's just my personal, belief. I mean, I'm throwing myself out there just telling everybody what I'm going to be doing. I'm in no means suggesting that you guys should do this, but, at least look into Gary Johnson, because Obama and Romney are just two of the same people. We live in a two-faced party, one-headed system, and I honestly want to change that, personally.
That's like George Washington said, he did not like the idea of political parties.
Yeah, no. I mean, we should vote the person, honestly. That's why I'm voting Ron Paul as a Republican,
Amen, sir. So, and do you think that our Congress, our very government, is undermining the American people in primarily any way? I mean, I could go on into, like, polls conducted their 9% approval rating, which they're trying to convince us that their approval rating went up to 11% somehow.
It's like they're trying to convince us that unemployment is not at 20-something%, that it's really at like 11%, because all these people stopped claiming unemployment because their unemployment ran out. So that doesn't matter. It's just, that's funny. What's that?
I'm right there with you, and 8.2%. That's funny right now. I'm sorry.
No, it is. I think a crazy statistic. I could be wrong. I don't have the exact numbers, but I believe the French Revolution started when the King's approval rating was like 15%, and it's just funny because we've already passed that point, and we're just going lower. So where's that revolution? You know what I mean?
Well, actually, I was going to talk to you about that at the Future of America segment. So don't worry, we will get into that.
Sure.
All right. So so for the next topic, economic collapse. There's hyperinflation, massive deflation, and the effects on the future generations. So let's go with hyperinflation for right now. This would tie into, for the layman's terms out there, our money basically becoming worthless, more and more worthless. For example, back in the day, you could buy a gallon of gas for, what was it, a nickel, and now you have to pay not where I live, $3.39 a gallon. So what's your opinion on what would happen to our country if hyperinflation were to strike?
Well, if hyperinflation were to strike, that is, if it does happen, then we would have a major crisis. There would be Oh man, I don't even know if it would be sustainable. If we had such a hyperinflation happen to our currency, there would be mass panic in a sense because people would not be able to purchase anything. And if we stopped consuming, which is such a big part of our system, then literally the whole system would just fail. It would come tumbling down. Not just our system, but China's system, Greece's system. Literally, the system is intertangled to every other country. So if we saw hyperinflation, I would see no other option but globalization,
Oh.
and that's why I'm so worried about it. Because I really see hyperinflation as a big part of our future. It's a major concern. People that don't believe me and don't understand how bad it really is, please get online and research because it's that bad. We, like I was saying, you're 21, I'm 25, 26. You know, honestly, we are going to see major changes in the future of our world. It's not going to be like it was in the 90s. You know, it's not going to go back to that way either. It's steadily getting worse and worse. And by the time, I think that's why the Federal Reserve is printing money, is just to prop us up for as long as possible. Because once they can't prop us up any longer, that's when it all comes tumbling down, and that's when they're going to push globalization. Because that's going to be the only option. And, I mean, because the whole system would collapse. So I do think that hyperinflation is possible. I think it's going to happen. I don't know when, though. I can't predict the future. But, all you have to do is look at the facts on what's happening. And, people like Ron Paul and Gerald Celente, as well as Peter Schiff, before 2008, were screaming to the high heaven that there's going to be a major collapse. And before the 2008 crisis, people laughed them off. Worse than 2000, worse than now. I mean, people really just laughed these people off. And I think that's why Ron Paul gained so much traction this year, was because people are waking up to this realization that, yeah, our economy really is in bad shape. And I know that I didn't realize this, at least to the extent that it was before 2008. Once 2008 happened, and that's when, I was researching before then, but that's when I changed the focus of my research and focused more on economic issues and realized just how bad off we really are as a country. And not just as a country, but as the world. I mean, Greece is in utter failure at this moment. Like I was saying earlier, Spain is not far behind, and Italy is not far behind them, and, neither is America. And if Greece collapsed, it would cause a chain reaction that would lead to our country having a major crisis as well. It's the same thing as Lehman Brothers in 2008. Once Lehman Brothers collapsed, they had to bail out J.P. Morgan and all these other, Goldman Sachs, all these other companies like AIG, because it was going to cause a chain effect, literally causing a major demise of the whole system in general. So that's where I think globalization comes into effect, and why I'm so concerned about globalization, because hyperinflation is going to push that ideology. And it's not going to necessarily push it as much as they're going to say it's required. So it's going to be forcing it, in a sense. And that's where I literally go rogue, because globalization, that would literally mean we're not America anymore. We go away from being Americans, going towards global citizens. We throw out our Constitution. We throw out everything that our country was founded on, all of our principles that our country was founded on. I mean, all the wars that our ancestors fought in, including the Iraq War, it would have been all for nothing. It would completely, the Iraq War not so much as like World War II and the American Revolution in a sense, but in that same way, it would all have been for nothing, because we now are not even Americans. We are now global citizens under the UN rule. And if you look at the previous bills, like the UN Guns Arms Treaty and a few other bills that the UN has put into effect, just like Obama going to the UN for approval to go to war with Syria and Libya over Congress, I mean, it looks to be that we are going towards a globalized government, like a one-world government. That is just something that really terrifies me as an American.
There's a speculation about usually when countries or when governments take away a country's guns, there's typically a government mass murder after. I mean, for Hitler, for the Chinese. Do you think that would be a possibility here in the U.S.?
I wouldn't claim that it's an impossibility. I don't want to say that it's going to happen, but I would be concerned that it would happen. There would not be a day that goes by that I wouldn't probably think about that or be concerned that it would happen. Would it happen? I don't want to speculate because who knows? So many things could happen. A meteorite could hit the Earth. You know what I mean? Who knows? And now, obviously, a meteorite's not going to hit the Earth, but at least that we know of. But I would not claim it as an impossibility. I would want every single American to be massively concerned to the point that they would not allow their guns to be taken. That's my view on that.
And with hyperinflation, that's one of the bigger possibilities with globalization, because it's obvious that I wouldn't say too many Americans would be too pleased with the idea of globalization, even to postpone or even absorb the debt of the world. Simply to say the debt doesn't exist anymore. That's just what we say. And not many people would be too friendly to that kind of change. So, take away the guns so that the American people can't fight back, install martial law for a time, maybe for indefinitely, but get the populace under control, indoctrinated, and, just no uprisings, because that's the thing that terrifies any government is a civil unrest and uprising. And as for the concept of hyperinflation, I'm going to put this into layman's terms for, because I'm a nice guy. If we were to hit hyperinflation, when we're about to go through our third round of quantitative easing, if hyperinflation were to hit, you'd have to take a wheelbarrow of dollars to the store to buy a loaf of bread. That's pretty much what it would equate to. Now, if we were to globalize, that government could absorb the debt, and poof, debt's gone, instant debt forgiveness, crisis averted. However, now we're stuck in a global government where one set of powerful people over in wherever they decide to meet suddenly makes the laws for everyone. And as everybody knows, one size does not fit all. And that's why I approve of the idea of individual states under the federation of these United States. So
no, I think you hit it on the head there, man.
Yes, sir. I think a lot. What can I say? So let's move on to massive deflation. Deflation is where money is taken away, therefore it is a single dollar is worth more because there are less of it, supply and demand. Now, everyone goes on about how we have a $16 trillion GDP, right?
It's around 16, but honestly, we don't really know, man. When you realize and factor in the fact that Social Security, all those funds, as well as Medicaid, etc., have been deflated in a sense or taken out to fund wars, our national debt is a big question mark. They claim it's definitely at 16 trillion, no matter what. I mean, I think it's just under that is what they're claiming, but it could be as much as 100+ trillion. And that's what people don't realize is we don't know, because all these wars that we've been fighting in the past few years, we've had to fund those wars, and the way we funded it was taking money out of programs like Social Security, etc. And just with the way that people are living longer, etc., the government is freaking out on this issue because they realize that they don't have those funds to be able to fund people living longer. The whole point is to hope that people die at an early age so that they don't spend that money. And I think that they realized, they did some basic math and realized that, well, this money is never going to really get to them anyway. We might as well take it out and fund these wars while we have the time, etc., before this globalization push that I think that the world's going to. I don't know if we had the conversation because me and you were talking earlier, and I was talking about globalization, how the Pope has called for globalization, as well as the United Kingdom Prime Minister Gordon Brown and Tony Blair and all of the past States presidents, and literally they're calling for it. So it's a real thing. It's a real thing that exists. It's not a conspiracy theory like some like to claim it is. And this is an actual situation that we are facing and that many of us are going to see happen. in the future.
So, I apologize. So, with mass deflation, do you think we could see something along the lines of an alternative currency to compete with the US dollar here in America? Should that become a possibility, and we actually do try to pay off the debt by extracting every dime from the private sector?
I would definitely say it's possible. Whether if I know that they're going to do that or not is definitely, it's definitely a big hypothesis on my end. I would have to take a big educated guess, and I would say that it's possible, but I don't know for sure that that's going to happen. I have heard of alternative currencies like the Amero.
Please don't say that word.
I know it's a bad word, man, but you know what's the euro? It's the same thing, you know, in a sense, and that exists. The euro really does exist, at least. The Amero could be a possibility. Maybe Iraq sees the dinar go up in value. I'm not sure. I mean, that's definitely speculation. You know, and as you know, we've been fighting in Iraq, literally taking over their economy in a sense. If their economy went up, I could see that changing to an alternative currency, maybe being the, I don't know. That's definitely big speculation on my end. You know, it comes from a lot of research also, but definitely speculation. I just couldn't tell you for sure. You could only guess at this point because who knows where they're going to go? Who knows what path they're going to take us down? Which goes to the point of why all of us need to start stepping up and fighting for our principles as Americans, because the world's changing and our country's changing, whether if you want to believe it or not. You know, through cognitive dissonance, many choose not to believe it because it would be such a change to their reality that they refuse to believe it. But it's really going to happen. It's really happening as we speak. So whether if we pretend it doesn't exist and just close our eyes, that might be a good philosophy for some, but we need people to realize that that philosophy won't really fix it and won't protect us in the future. We need people to actually step up and do something.
Very good, sir. Very good. So, should either of these come to pass, and it's been a mathematical certainty that our system has no choice but to create more debt to sustain itself, so either one of these two situations will happen, what do you see for the effects of future generations?
What do I see for the future?
Yes, sir.
Well, like I was unfortunately talking about, I really think that globalization will be a reality. I think that I'm really afraid that it's already too far gone. And, you know, unless if we get somebody like Ron Paul into office who's actually willing to cut spending and decrease spending by trillions of dollars, then we're not gonna solve this problem. You know, we're not gonna fix it. And unfortunately, we need people that are in power that are willing to want to fix this in the traditional way and keep America as America and not push us towards a globalized government. You know, push us towards a changed reality of what America really is. And I just don't see any leaders other than possibly Gary Johnson who are willing to do that. I know Romney and Obama aren't going to do that. So, I mean, really, it's that two-faced party, one-headed system that I was talking about. The Republicans and Democrats just prop each other up. They are not different. They act like they're different, and they have a few different views on a few different things that they definitely publicize and blow up to the extreme to make you think that you are different, that they are different, but they are not different. They prop each other up. That whole argument of, like, the government's going to shut down this past December in 2011, that was over just a few $billion. I think it was like $100 billion, which sounds like a lot of money to me and you because $1 billion is a ton of money, but the government works in trillions of dollars, and the billions of dollars is not that much in a sense. And the whole thing was media propagandized in a sense to make you think that, oh, they're arguing because they're really trying to do something to fix this, but they aren't. They were arguing over $100 billion, and I think it might even be $10 billion cuts over the next 10 years, which is just insane to think about. Whereas somebody like Ron Paul wants to cut a few $1 trillion in the first 4 or 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. So we need people like Ron Paul who are actually willing to stick their neck out and say that we need to stop spending and we need to come out and start paying back these debts that we're just acquiring for the future. I think the future generations are going to get a horrible rap. They're going to have to pay this back, and we're not going to have a past like, or we're not going to have a future like the past, like in the 90s and the 80s, even before then. You know, it's going to be a tough future, and people better get prepared because it's coming, whether you want to believe it is or not. It's really coming.
Would you recommend that they indulge in some survivalist videos or some survivalist classes?
Definitely. I personally have a bug out bag. I've spent about $1,000 for my bug out bag.
Ah.
I would, and I'm not a rich person. You know, I don't want people to think that I just have $1,000 to go and blow on a survival bag. No, I saved and I bought little by little, like piece by piece, here and there, to be able to protect myself if something does happen. Because, you know, when the crap hits the fan, to say, that's when things are going to get tough, and people need to have food storage and water storage. Because if the economy did collapse, water would not come out of your tap, which is how I think they're going to be able to push globalization so easily, because people are going to have kids that they're going to need to feed. And when food stops coming to the store and water stops coming out of your tap, you're going to freak out because you're going to do anything you can to be able to survive. So there's going to be mass looting, mass chaos, and you're going to need to be able to protect yourself. Not only that, but have food and water enough to be able to survive for the future. You know, and when that happens, I think that's why FEMA really does have I call them re-education camps. They're known as FEMA camps better, but they call them economic crisis centers. And the Army has come out and admitted these camps exist. And it's meant to be, these camps are meant to exist for if the economy does collapse, the National Guard and, you know, the Army can come round up the citizens and say, hey, you know, I understand you don't have water and food to feed your family. Please come to these camps. We'll provide that water and food for you, allow you to survive, but it's going to be a re-education, and we're going to go towards a completely new system. America is not America anymore. It's a different world. It's now a globalized world, and that's my biggest fear, and that's massive speculation. That's just how I see it's going to happen. I mean, it's not like I have a blueprint in front of me that I'm reading from saying that, oh, this is going to happen step by step. That's just how I see they're going to implement this, because our economy really is in a deep, horrible situation. It is in a bad state of mind, and we are continually printing money, just propping this crisis up, you know, from happening. 2008 was stopped. You know, it was stopped and propped up, allowing us to go back to the 14,000 Dow Jones mark, you know, which is, I think, where we're at. We're close to 14,000, if not a little bit below it, which is where we were at in 2008 before it came all tumbling down. So it really is just a matter of time. You know, it really is just a matter of time. There's going to be massive economic issues, and for the people that aren't prepared, that don't have the bug-out bags, that don't have, you know, water jugs, that don't have a bag where they can have little, like a small pot to cook out of, you know what I mean? To be able to take on the go if they need to. Those are the people that are going to be scrambling to find food and water, and are the ones that are looting, and the ones that are even killing, in a sense, to be able to provide food and water, not only for themselves, but for their families. So I would definitely recommend people get on board with survival guides and videos and start preparing for that.
After the show, we need to talk about that, because $1,000 versus the 600 I spent. I want to compare notes.
Definitely.
All right. So, and I also got a recurve bow because I like having reusable ammo as arrows, but that's for later on. All right.
No, I need to get some arrows I need to get like a bow. That's one thing I do want. And a BB gun, believe it or not. I actually want a BB gun as well. I know that's not going to like protect me against an intruder, but you never know what you might need it for.
Oh, you can take out a squirrel with it, and squirrels have meat.
Exactly, and it's not that I eat squirrels, but, you know, if I'm desperate, I will.
Yes, sir. All right, so, you know, speaking of the future of America, this will be our final set of bulletins. What do you think the real problem with America is? Do you think it's the government? Do you think it's the Democrats? Do you think it's the people? What's your take on that?
The real problem with America, I think, is that education is not widespread. And by education, I don't mean public education or homeschooling. I mean education about what's really going on politically and economically in our country. And I think a lot of it has to do with we still trust the television so much more than we need to. We trust Fox News and CNN to report accurate information, whereas they really don't. They manipulate the process to push their agendas. I mean, look at what they've done to Ron Paul in this past year. I mean, they gave everybody an opportunity to become the front runner of the Republican presidential election, except for Ron Paul. And I think that they gave everybody the opportunity because really Ron Paul is such a strong core base and following that they were so afraid that he actually would overcome their tactics that they had to give everybody their opportunity to see who would follow into those candidates. You know what I mean? Like, what was his name? Kane. We had Rick Perry. We had Newt Gingrich. We had Michelle Bachmann. Santorum, thank you. Tim Pawlenty even at the very beginning.
Wasn't Gary Johnson in there as well as a Republican?
That's a good question. I think he was, because wasn't he a part of the Republican debates?
Yeah, I believe he was. I believe he was there for the drug debate.
For the very first one, he was a part of it, and after that, they tossed him aside. So that's a good question. I don't know if he was Republican, but he could have well been. I'm not sure.
Well, I remember seeing him on stage with Ron Paul during a drug debate.
Definitely, I remember that too.
I was trying to think, was that this year or last year?
No, that was this year for sure.
Well, then he was running for Republican nominee.
Huh. I guess that's the case. Yeah, I really didn't make that connection, believe it or not. But he is now definitely for the Libertarian Party, though, and he has my vote.
Same here. Assuming Ron Paul doesn't get the Republican nomination.
That is true, yes.
I mean, I like you, Gary Johnson, but, Ron Paul he's Ron Paul. Come on now.
Gary Johnson is definitely not a Ron Paul, but Gary Johnson is also definitely not a Mitt Romney or Barack Obama, which makes him so appealing.
Amen. All right, so, and do you mind if I put my little 2 cents in on the real problem with America?
No, absolutely.
All right, I'm sorry, everyone, this is my own shameless plug-in, but to me, the real problem with America, and I mean, everyone's trying to pass off blame to the Republicans or the Democrats. The real problem with with America is the American people. And why do I say that? Well, we can all go on and on about, Republicans doing this, Democrats doing that, what Obama did, what Bush did, what Clinton did. But when it comes down to it, the Constitution is for we the people, not they the government. We the people are supposed to be in control of the country. We've passed that on to a government we don't even approve of. I'll even go with the liberal 11% approval rating of Congress. We let them lead us. We let these people lead us. I mean, don't try to. Yeah, I'm a bit of a cynic, so yeah, kind of your opposite. But that's when you stop and think. People know that they lead us. Some people want to even have our health care in their hands. What? Well, that's my 2 cents, thank you.
No, and I can't disagree. It's not that... See, one of the big things, too, is I don't think it's... The American people, if they understood what was really happening, they would fight back. So it's not a sense of... I don't want to say it's the American people. It's the fact that the education of the American people don't realize that these things are happening. They don't want to believe it in a sense also. They're not interested in politics, which in a sense is the reason why I agree with you that it is also the American people, because people need to step out of their element, realize that education on these issues is a must, not only in the future but in the immediate as well, because look at all the bills that have been passed recently, man. I mean, CISPA, Act of SOPA PIPA, I know I've talked about those already in the addition to the NDAA, but those things are recent, in the past 6 months, if you will, and past 8 months, if you will, 8-9 months. And if people, you could go ask somebody on the street if they know what CISPA is, And they will tell you more than likely no. Maybe you'll get lucky and find a few people that know, but the overwhelming majority will absolutely tell you that they have no idea about CISPA. They have no idea what it's for, what it's going to do. Versus if they did know, I'm sure that there would be a way stronger outcry about it. So in that sense, the American people it is definitely the American people. They need to realize that they need to learn about these issues and study up on them so that they can protect their freedoms, because our freedoms are being taken away.
A very good point, sir. Very good point. So let's move on to our last two bulletins. And the first one is, how would you address this problem? You mentioned that there would be education, but what exactly would you be educating people on? Would you be educating people on the free market, on the principles of liberty? Please.
Well, I think that education would need to start with the Federal Reserve, for one. I mean, there are many aspects that need to be focused on through education, but the Federal Reserve being one of them. You know, the Federal Reserve, like I was saying, is not a part of the federal government. It is a corporation that controls our economy. If that doesn't throw red flags in your head, I honestly don't know what will. It's literally giving the power of our country to a corporation, and an American president has admitted this. So it's not like it's just my view on this. It's literally a stated fact from an American president who actually signed them into law nonetheless. I mean, he regretted it afterwards. So that would be one thing, understanding what the Federal Reserve is and understanding what they're doing to our economy. Not only that, but understanding what happened in 2008, understanding what the Fed is doing with the printing of money. Also, I mean, there are many points that I could focus on. I don't want to focus on a few of them because people don't understand just yet why I would even focus on those, so I don't want to mention a few, but people need to step up out of their element. They need to start researching things that are happening in our country, not only in our country, but our world. They need to realize that the system is a global system, that if Greece collapses, we all collapse, because it's a chain effect. Greece, our economy relies on the fact that Greece needs to be active and needs to function. Not only Greece, but Spain's economy, Italy's economy, as well as every other global economy. We all are interconnected. So that would be one thing that I think people need to realize and try to go away from, in a sense, because literally it wouldn't matter if our economy is doing fantastic. If Greece collapsed, it would collapse the whole system. So we need to figure out how to intertwingle ourselves from that system and go a different route. And that's just my 2 cents on what needs to happen. I mean, there's a few other things that I could touch on, obviously, but it all comes down to education to the American people, helping them realize what's really going on. Also, being afraid, you know. People need to not let fear take over and step up.
Amen, sir. All right, and the last bulletin is a topic you picked, which would be the future of America, the Internet. What do you foresee for the Internet within the next 4 or 5 years?
As long as CISPA or any other bill that's coming out in the future doesn't censor the Internet to a massive extent, I think that the Internet is going to be a big factor in educating people. And I know I am focusing my efforts on that. I know you are as well, and I know others are as well also. But I see the Internet as taking over television. I think television is dying. I know that the mainstream media has lost 50% of their viewership in the past few years, which is a big feat, in my opinion. I'm so happy to hear that information.
Aren't we all, though?
You know, what's that?
Aren't we all, though? Take note, Bill O'Reilly.
Oh, I know, yeah. But I see the Internet personally going towards taking over television and being the alternative news, being the alternative reality, in a sense, to come to figure out what's really going on, not trusting Fox or CNN, or MSNBC, because they're all the same. It doesn't matter if they focus on right-wing agendas or left-wing agendas, or if they're in the middle. They're all the same. They all promote manipulation, and they all promote their own agendas. So the internet, which is one of the biggest tools that we have at our disposal, I think is going to overtake the television, and we need people that are willing to step up and start providing that information to people, like I am doing and like yourself is doing. I know we mentioned my channel at the very beginning of the show. My channel is the letter R and then 11110000. So the letter R, 4 ones and 4 zeros. And I know I'm going to be posting at least 3 videos a week, if not more if I can, on many different topics. You know, it's tough to tell you what topics I'm going to focus on because I kind of choose them off of what's really going on at that time in our world. For example, I'm going to do a video in the future on how Harry Reid has flip-flopped on his view of audit the Fed and literally won't allow the most recent audit the Fed bill that was just passed through House even go to the floor of the Senate to be voted on. So it's literally stopping it dead in its tracks nonetheless. And, you know, the sad thing is he's flip-flopped on that issue. So I'm going to plan on doing a video on that, trying to get people to write Harry Reid, stopping that from happening, hopefully pushing audit the Fed through. You know, and we just need, that's my point, is we need people to step up, stop trusting the television, come to the internet for information, for your channel, you know, like the Psychological Clinic, as well as my channel, as well as many other channels, even the channels that I promote on my homepage and the featured page of my YouTube. Those channels are very good channels as well, and I think that that's a big thing that people need to embrace, not only embrace, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Thunderstorm's coming down hard. But my Psychological Cynic channel is actually a channel dedicated to psychology, because that's one of my main focuses in life is psychology. But it's my Dax and Islander channel that I'm doing most of the opinionated stuff and giving a lot of news.
Yeah.
But yeah, Psychological Cynic, that'll be, you know, where I go over like mob mentality, the psychology of touch. It all ties into pretty much how we've gotten to the point we are as a society and a culture, the melting pot that is America. It actually ties in a lot with what we are as, or who we are as people, and how we've gotten the way we are. But that's a discussion for another time.
No, yeah, I love the channel. I know you have a few, which is going to my point that people need to contribute like yourself and I am doing.
And he does a lot better job than I do, ladies and gentlemen.
You do a good job.
You got hundreds of videos, and like, you're in the thousands of subscribers, yeah. So
yeah. I think I'm at 4250 now. 4253 as I'm looking now, which is awesome, man. I love that. It's got me to want to continue to post, which is fantastic. I'm really excited to see where it goes in the future.
Yeah, rub it in more, why don't you? I'm just kidding.
No, I'm sorry. I don't mean that. No, I'm pumped for it because it's if it failed, you know, I would stop doing this, and I just happen to love doing this.
Dude,
so
I'm
jazzed.
I'm just giving you stuff, bro. I'm trying to get, put a little comedy in with our dark, bring down the economy and take away all the food and water and no money and no. Oh my God.
I know. I hate talking about it in a sense, and people probably shut us off because it is such a deep topic, but it's real. You know, it needs to be discussed, and people need to learn.
And that ties into, well, what my basic philosophy of they'll learn or they'll end up in places they don't want to be.
Yeah, I agree.
But alright, everybody, thank you for tuning in to Dax Interviews, and this has been R11110000. I'm going to post his channel link in the description below, but chances are you found this by typing in his name anyway. And if you are a subscriber of mine, all 42 of you, I highly recommend his channel for viewing.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
Oh, anytime. Any final words?
Well, thank you for everybody who's listening, and please stay tuned not only to Dax's channels, but my own as well, because I know I'm going to be posting constantly, and I think you are as well. So.
But of course. All right, everybody. Have a great day.
Tears are filling up their glasses. No expression, no expression. Hide my head, I wanna drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow.